Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in again as we take some time during the middle of the week to learn another lesson from the Psalms. So far we've learned the lesson of direction, to whom we go to. We've also learned the lesson of honesty, what do we say when we go there? And this week we're learning the lesson of remembering. The Psalms teach us this important lesson to remember. Wonder how's your memory? Maybe you can recall things, no problem, or maybe you're like me and you walk into the kitchen and open the fridge and you can't remember why you went there in the first place or what you were looking for. But it's not that kind of memory that the Psalms are looking us to think on. They want us to learn the lesson of having a good, godly memory. That is, remembering who God is, what God has done, and what God promises to do. The Psalms want to teach us that lesson because forgetfulness can be fatal. And we know that because our forgetfulness of God only leads us into the spiral of doubt and despair, where we think, God doesn't love us, He doesn't care for us, He doesn't listen, He doesn't want to listen. And so we ask the same questions that the psalmist Asaph asks in Psalm 77. That's the psalm we're going to be using this evening as we learn this lesson. So in verses 8 and 9, Asaph writes, "Has His," that's God's, "steadfast love forever ceased? Are His promises at an end for all time? Has God forgotten to be gracious? Has He in anger shut up His compassion?" We think similar things. We think that God has forgotten us. And we think that since He's forgotten us, we're going to forget Him. And we think that if we do that, that'll free us from the burdens we feel. And yet it doesn't. In reality, the despair only deepens. You see, it's actually remembering that restores us. Remembering that rescues us. Look to where Asaph takes his heart and mind in verse 11. I can see what he says there. He says, "I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your wonders of old. I will ponder all your work and meditate on your mighty deeds." As Asaph remembers, hope comes into his heart. And that can be the same for us. When we remember who God is, what God has done in the past, that enables us to have hope for the present and for the future. Within the Psalms, this remembering normally happens in two ways. One is the psalmist being personal. He looks back on his own life and he remembers how God has been there. He's seen him through difficult and hard times. And he comes to this conclusion that if God has been there in the past, if He's seen him through those things before, then won't He do it again? And can't we trust God for the present and the future because of the past? The other way is how the psalmist remembers specific instances in the history of God's people. Usually this is the Exodus. It's God's redemption, His rescue of His people from Egypt, leading them through the Red Sea, leading them from slavery, and bringing them out from death to life. That's where Asaph actually finishes the psalm, if you look at verses 19 and 20. "Your way was through the sea, your path through the great waters, yet your footprints were unseen. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron." Our remembering should be the same. It's to look back, to remember God's faithfulness, His goodness, His mercy, His care in the past for His people. And then to say to ourselves that if God did that then, and His character and His heart has not changed, then I can have hope for today, hope for tomorrow, hope for whatever lies ahead. After this midweek moment is over, whenever you watch it, take some time and read through Psalm 77 and pray through it. And notice how the turning point for Asaph is him remembering. Now what I want you to do, I want you to take a sheet of paper and do what the Psalms teach us to do, to remember. And then you can use that piece of paper to pray. And believe me, you'll have plenty of material to pray through. And you'll also have had this blessing of realigning your heart and your mind to hope through remembering. I want you to do two things with your piece of paper. The first is this: to look back in your life and remember, and to list God's faithfulness to you so far in your life. Both the big and the small, maybe the noticed and the unnoticed, the appreciated or the unappreciated. Think about what God has seen you through. Even those things that you may still be going through, but how God is with you, how you know He's walking with you through them. Look at that list. Realize how you can have hope for the now and for the future as you learn the lesson of remembering His faithfulness and His goodness. And then secondly, list your main reason for confidence and hope as you look back. Do what the Psalms do and look back and remember what is our Exodus event for New Testament people. The great Exodus when Jesus redeemed us with His arm, with His hands nailed to a cross. How He led us like His flock, how the Good Shepherd laid down His life for the sheep. And when you do that, you'll be able to come and grasp what Paul says in Romans 8:32. He who did not spare His own Son, but gave Him up for us all, how will He not also with Him graciously give us all things? Remember how God has given us His Son, Jesus Himself. And since He has done that, we can have our hearts and minds say that God is faithful. He will not forget us. And we do that. We can do that when we learn the lesson of remembering. Thanks for joining with me. Take care, stay safe, and God bless.